Yesterday, the first quarter of 2020 wrapped up, and after we had had a long bull market run, stocks suffered the worst that they have since 2008, and for the first quarter in particular, the S&P 500 stocks suffered their worst quarter since 2008. What are we to make of it all? What should we be looking at and keeping in mind? For answers, I'm excited to turn to, for the very first time here on Jimmy at the Crossroads, Woody Vincent. Woody is a veteran stock trader for the past 3+ decades. He's also, like me, former host of a show called Business for Breakfast. It was a radio program in Colorado that had a few different incarnations. I was the most recent one until late last year, actually. And also, he is the author of the book, What's in a Name? Woody Vincent, stock guru extraordinaire, joins us on this Wednesday, April 1st. Sir, good to talk with you. Welcome to the show.
Oh, well, thank you, Jimmy. Great to be here with you.
I appreciate you taking the time, especially because, look, the stock market has been topsy-turvy. Now, once again, we're down almost 1,000 points as of this broadcast on the Dow. What are you noticing is happening right about now? What's your assessment of the first quarter?
Well, I wish I could offer some sanguine advice to you. I've just noticed that everybody is selling. I mean, and there's really no place to hide right now. I was looking at the S&P 500. There's 502 stocks for some reason in the S&P 500. 21 of them are higher. And they are all kind of the places where you would expect them to be higher right now. I mean, Kroger is actually leading the list up a couple of percentage points. Target is up there. I didn't see Walmart, but I'm sure it's up in there. Dollar General, ConAgra. So anything, Clorox is up there, things that you can buy at the supermarket. And the supermarket itself is higher because there's been a run on goods at the supermarkets. And so they're doing a pretty land office business. That's unfortunately, some of that is just kind of front running the actual market. I mean, how much toilet paper do you need? Nobody's going to be buying toilet paper in a few months because all the toilet paper will be in everybody's basement. So right now there's no place really to hide. So that's not, there's no real safe area, as I say. You know, you've got 480 stocks in the S&P 500 that are down. There's probably some places that you could put money depending on how much nerve you have, but I'm not sure that right now is the real time to do it. You're going to see what you're going to see is I think we're going to go back and test that low in the whatever, I think about 18,200. And when you think about it, you know, the Dow at that low point had lost 11,000 points at 30% of its value. And so we may see a retest of that low.
Woody Vincent, when we look at the first quarter declines and stocks reaching their lowest points in years, one thing that comes to mind is this question, which is this simply because of coronavirus, or do you think that there were some underlying challenges in the market already, and coronavirus was more the impetus for bringing about a decline in stock market that was going to happen at some point? I mean, we had an 11+ year bull run. That was unprecedented in history.
Yeah, nothing goes up forever, and that's typical. But what is not typical is to have a 33% decline in the market. When the market first got into correction territory and was down about 10%, well, I thought, okay, let's see how this goes. And then within a matter of a couple of days, it was in bear market territory, down 20%. And then a few days later, it was down 30%. And, in my own personal portfolio, I'm willing to live out a lot of stuff, and I'm still living out a lot of stuff. Fortunately, I have some cash that I can put to work later on, and hopefully a lot of people do. But I mean, I found myself just hemorrhaging money, and which is, I don't know if I was the only person buying liquor. I see a lot of people are buying liquor, but I was buying as much as I could get my hands on because it was kind of hard to go through the days. I think that the market was vulnerable. That you were talking. Lofty, maybe 18, 19 PE ratio. And so that's up there. And so coming back down to a normalized 15 would have brought us down anyway to about the 24,000 level. So I thought that we were probably due for, 3 or 4,000 points of Dow loss, but I didn't think that we were certainly, but absent the coronavirus and some of the consequences that you have on that, particularly in the energy industry. Absent that, there's no way that you're going to lose 33% of the market value. And part of the problem that you have here that's also killing the market is that nobody's driving, nobody's out on the streets, everybody's hunkered down, and so nobody's buying oil. I saw oil was at $20 today, but people are talking about it going to $10. Ironically, one of the areas where people were actually making some money, and I don't know if this will be short-lived or not, but that is companies that own tankers. There's no place to put the oil. And so tankers are sucking up as much as they possibly can. And so I saw TK Shipping, that's a tanker company, that they were up. And I don't know, I've got an investment in a small little maritime company that has some tanker space.
Woody Vincent, can I jump in? Again, we're talking with Woody Vincent, who's a veteran stock trader for the past 3+ decades, joining us here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. You mentioned oil, so let's just talk about that for a moment, because we are seeing the lowest point for oil this week since February of 2002. What has caused this significant decline in the price for a barrel of oil?
Well, there's two things, really. Lack of demand. Nobody's driving. Nobody's... cars eat up a huge amount of oil, and so nobody's driving around. The streets are empty. If you've been driving around, I had to buy some food the other day, and it's like a ghost town if you go out driving. It's really kind of amazing. So there's that lack of demand on the automobile side, and then you also have this really ill-timed or horribly timed price war with the Russians and the Saudis. I think that we should immediately just stop importing Saudi Arabian oil. Just flat out say we don't need it, we can't use it, because we're going to kill our own oil business if we're not careful, and that's not a real bright thing to do. But so you have a glut of oil because the Saudis and the Russians are flooding the market, and then you have zero demand, because nobody's filling up their tank. I mean, I got a quarter tank of gas in my car. It'll probably last me till June.
Woody Vincent, when we talk about the stock market declines, I mean, obviously no one can predict when we will reach a bottom. And this is something that is in every way, it seems, unpredictable. But given that unpredictability, given the volatility that we're seeing in markets right now, what do you think investors should keep in mind from a strategic standpoint?
Well, from a strategic standpoint, Warren Buffett has always said any money that you're going to need in the next 5 years shouldn't be in the stock market. That's how it is. You need to have cash around to get through the day-to-day. Stock market, 5 years from now, we'll probably look back at this and say it's no big deal. And so if you haven't sold, then you may as well just have to ride it out. As far as where the market is going to go, as I say, I think that 18,000 handle probably gets retested. Not really sure. What's going to change this market is what happens with the anti-malarial cures or therapies that they have for the coronavirus. If those turn out to be successful, then I think the market takes off, because now you can get people back to work, that you can treat the symptoms. There's two types of viruses. There's the viruses that are like Ebola, that actually destroy the host cell, and that's where you melt down. And then there's the viruses that are like the common cold and coronavirus, which kill you because your immune system kills you. Your immune system overreacts. Anti-malarials are very, very good at suppressing the immune response. And so I'm hoping that we get some good answers, not just to bail out President Trump, but to bail out the rest of the country. Well, if it turns out that you can take a tablet and it's going to help you and it's going to keep that immune system from killing yourself, then I think the market takes off, because then people will say, hey, we have a solution.
So There are a lot of folks in the media and some Democrat governors, for example, the governor of Michigan saying, that's Governor Whitmer, I think, she's saying, no, you're not allowed to prescribe this. It is a penalty. It is against the law for a physician to prescribe this potential treatment. Now, as Dr. Fauci has said, they need to test this out and make sure that it does work and have their clinical trials. But it's something that we know is a drug that, if prescribed by a physician, can be done safely. And so the big question is not just the safety aspect, which we already know from experience because of treating malaria and other illnesses for decades, but is this effective? And it goes to one of the points that I've been making, and yesterday we talked about this on the show, is the idea that the FDA should be focused more on approving drugs for safety, not so much for efficacy, and allow doctors, allow physicians in concert with their patients to make these decisions without the government getting in the way.
Well, I think that's 100% right. You're dead on that. Efficacy is. I think that everything should be given a numerical score. That you should be able to say, well, this drug helped 98% of its patients, or this drug helped 75%, or 50%. The FDA doesn't want people selling snake oil. Let's face it. They don't want people. I remember when Steve McQueen died, he was down in Mexico taking Laetrile, and he was hoping that would cure him for cancer, and that was just a false hope. On the other hand, if something is 80% effective, I mean, would you not take it if you're on your deathbed? Are you out of your mind? Of course you'd take it. I've got a little head cold right now. I'm hoping it's not coronavirus. You never know, because, you get head colds. I'm not going to run off to the emergency room every time that I get the sniffles, but I'd say they ought to be giving it. And I think, and I don't know how the studies are being done. They should not just be giving it to people who are at death's door, because they may already be too far gone. You should take the people who are coming in who test positive. Let's see if this takes their symptoms down. Yeah, I think the efficacy requirement is insane. And if you take a look at the chloroquine and the hydroxychloroquine compounds, they have been prescribed to people since 1947. It's not like this stuff just, that they just developed it last week. So they already know what the side effects are. Most of these side effects are actually pretty minor. It's a lot of itching, is my understanding. And why not give it to people? My regimen on that would be, boy, if you test positive, we're going to give you a packet of pills.
Sure.
It's about a 6-day regimen, and we'll see if this takes care of the problem. That's what I'd be doing. And I think that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Finish your point. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, that governments around the world think that it works. And the reason they think it works, or the reason that, is because they are now banning the export of the stuff. Mm. And that idiot governor in Michigan and the other goofball in Sisolak in Nevada, I think that's totally irresponsible. The nice thing is the FDA has now approved those, and I understand that Governor Whitmer in Michigan has rescinded her order that now you can give it because the FDA gave green light. So let's not be dumb here.
If that's the case, then I missed that, and good. She should have never done it in the first place. But of course, clinical studies need to be conducted as well. They are being conducted, as I understand it, and it is important to keep that in mind and talk with your physician too before you embark on any sort of treatment like this. Okay, Woody Vincent, veteran stock trader, our guest for the past over 30 years as a stock trader. Let me ask you one more question. I know you touched on this before when we started our conversation, but what are some of the stocks or industries that you're particularly monitoring during this time that may be benefiting?
Well, I think that I would not chase the food stores. I wouldn't chase Target and Walmart and Kroger. I think that'll come down.
And can I make one point on those companies, Woody? I'm sorry. One thing that I've noted is that the higher ticket goods that they usually sell at Walmart and Target are not what they're selling so much. Much more it is the food and the paper products and cleaning solution and medications, not those higher dollar things they like to sell.
Well, sure. And as I say, people can only stock up on so much Clorox. Yeah. And depending on where we're at. This is a day-by-day thing. What I would really look at is unless you believe that the major airlines are going to go broke, they're all selling for 50 cents on the dollar at the most. I mean, American Airlines I saw this morning was $11, I think, down from 33 or something like that. Maybe I might have that wrong. So the major airlines, I would say, if you want to put some money to work, I'd tiptoe into those, and also the financials. Wells Fargo, Bank of America, they are definitely selling for 50 cents on the dollar. Banks aren't going to go out of business. I mean, that's just not going to, some little banks might go out of business, but the big ones are not going to go out of business. And if you want to look at the oil companies, I would not invest in any of the drillers or any of those, because they could actually go down. But the major integrateds, which make money on the refining and everything else, the Exxons, the Chevrons, Royal Dutch, those are probably areas where you might, if you want to put some money to work here, maybe not today, but those should be on your shopping list.
And of course, as I always like to point out, talk with a financial advisor before you make decisions, but some good starting points. Yeah, exactly. Because good starting points for investigation are what I like to look at guys like Woody Vincent or Mark D. Cook or ladies like Krista Huff here on Jimmy at the Crossroads. So, Woody, a final word for us on the stock market before we cut you loose, my friend.
Well, don't panic. If you didn't sell early, don't sell late, and ride it out. Things will get better. We will find a cure for this, and that'll put people back to work. But the numbers are staggering. The estimate from the Federal Reserve: 47 million people out of work. That makes the Great Depression look like a walk through the park. So, don't panic. But
depending on how long it lasts, would make the Great Depression look like a walk in the park. So I don't think we're headed in that direction for the long run, but we'll have to see. Woody Vincent, veteran stock trader for more than 3 decades. Check out his book, What's in a Name? It is on Amazon, so be sure to do that. Woody Vincent, my friend, good to talk with you. Thanks for your insights today.
Good to see you, Jimmy. Take care.
Once again, Woody Vincent, been in the stock trading world for over 3 decades. And like me, as I mentioned before, has hosted Business for Breakfast, a show that had a few different incarnations, most recently yours truly in Colorado on the radio.